attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to coincide. But can I just say this?
We can have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that it's called, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America. There is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
Bill Maher is once again taking aim at Whoopi Goldberg, and this time he is not just offering a different opinion. He is coming in strong and directly challenging her stance. Whoopi has built a reputation for making comments that spark immediate backlash, but this latest moment feels like it has pushed things even further once Maher stepped into the conversation. It quickly shifted from a simple exchange of views into something that felt more like a direct and cutting takedown. If you are ready to see how it all unfolded, then stay with me because we are about to break it all down step by step.
What do you think of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's worse to be a black person in America today than a woman in Iran? I say we were talking about the trans issue before, and the New York Times really has come over on that to the sort of the sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position. I think this is great first step toward getting the Democrats back to sanity. And a second good step would be, we got to do something about The View. I really believe that. I mean, could you just
it's huge in Iran, though.
Bill Maher takes direct aim at Whoopi Goldberg's claim that being black in America is worse than being a woman in Iran, arguing that the comparison falls apart the moment you look at reality. Women in Iran face strict law surveillance and punishment enforced by the state, while black Americans, despite real challenges, still have the power to vote, lead, and shape society. For Maher, putting both situations on the same level is not bold, it is misleading, and that is why the backlash came so quickly.
Watching The View in Iran, all with the same head cover. You can't even tell which one is which.
My district in the great state of Texas is actually a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 25 points. As I said, I'm a direct descendant of a slave. My great-great-grandfather was born on a Rosedown plantation. I am literally being judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. That's the progress, because, like, a lot of white people had to vote for me. A lot.
So
I don't even ever want to hear Whoopi Goldberg's conversation about how it's worse to be black in America right now. That's a bit far. And my father, who's 75 years old, he was a man that was in the French quarters that had to go get a sandwich to the back door of the building. And his son is now a United States congressman in a white majority district in Texas as a Republican. That is America. That's America.
Then Wesley Hunt steps into the conversation, and the entire debate becomes harder to simplify. He brings up his own family history, pointing out that his great-grandfather was born into slavery, a reminder of real suffering and real oppression. Yet today, Hunt serves in Congress representing a majority white district. That contrast shifts the discussion back to reality. Critics say this is where Whoopi's framing falls short, because ignoring the progress that has been made does not strengthen the argument it erases history. No one is saying America is perfect, but acting like nothing has changed only distorts the truth and add confusion instead of clarity.
Juneteenth, that's a Texas holiday. It began in Texas in Galveston. General Granger came and read the order number 3 that finally abolished slavery months after the war, because the war took a time to get to Galveston. We celebrated that when I was a kid in Texas, but it becomes national a year or two ago, and Donald Trump doesn't want to celebrate that. To me, it's exactly what you're talking about. So is it 600,000 people died so that we wouldn't enslave people anymore. And the fact that freedom won is a good thing, and we should honor that. That's what Juneteenth's about. And I don't know why President Trump doesn't want to honor that.
So I don't want it. I don't want Black History Month. I don't want all these days for it to make everybody feel special. I'm an 80s baby. Everybody's too sensitive anyway. We're all Americans anyway. This holiday
That's what Morgan Freeman said.
Morgan Freeman, said, I can't agree more with him.
Yeah, he said that to Mike Wallace. He said, I'm an American. Do you want to be called a Jew American, Mike?
Bill Maher does not stop at one comment. He expands the conversation to what he sees as a bigger problem: identity politics, something he has challenged for years. He argues that constantly focusing on race grievance and symbolic identity does not bring people together. It pushes them further apart. What may begin as recognition can slowly turn into a lasting sense of division. That is why even topics like Black History Month become part of a wider debate. Critics say those moments are about honoring history not creating separation, but Maher believes that when differences become the main focus, shared identity starts to fade, and that is where he sees the real problem begin.
People celebrate Juneteenth too, and non-Italians celebrate Columbus Day. And
I'm all for any holiday.
I'm half Irish. Do I get half the day off on St. Patrick's Day?
But a lot of
I get half drunk.
Everybody gets drunk on St. Patrick's Day. That's a good point.
Did you have a question for the congressman there?
No, are you telling me you're black?
Yes.
You don't see color, right?
We don't see color.
That brings the conversation to a deeper question. How do you recognize history without turning division into a permanent way of thinking? Most critics agree that differences should be acknowledged, but worry that those differences are becoming the only lens people use to understand themselves and others. When that happens, it can start to weaken the sense of unity. The goal is not to erase history or ignore culture, but to prevent identity from dominating every discussion to the point where the idea of one shared nation begins to fade. For Maher and others, this shift is concerning because the more everything is framed through division, the more people begin to see themselves as separate groups instead of citizens connected by a common future.
Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it.
Bill Maher then shifts his focus to the show itself, and this is where his criticism becomes sharper. In his view, the program often ends up hurting liberal ideas more than helping them, because instead of presenting arguments as thoughtful and grounded, it can make them seem exaggerated, emotional, and out of touch with everyday people. Critics say this is something many Democrats still overlook because audiences are not always persuaded by these moments. Some leave feeling skeptical, others annoyed, and some stop taking the message seriously altogether. For Maher, this is the bigger issue. The show is not just creating controversy, it is shaping an image that makes liberal messaging appear weaker than it could be.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
Bill Maher pushes the argument even further, saying the issue is not just tone but substance. In his view, too many discussions start with a fixed narrative and then shape the facts around it, which puts emotion ahead of evidence. That approach might sound strong in the moment, but it weakens quickly when challenged. Critics argue this makes the show feel less like open debate and more like a space where one viewpoint is protected while opposing voices are brushed aside. And once audiences start noticing that pattern, they no longer see it as honest discussion, but as ideological reinforcement, which makes rebuilding credibility much more difficult.
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
At that point, it stops looking like just a television moment and starts being framed as a wider political warning. Critics argue the Democratic establishment is already dealing with a credibility problem, and that this kind of rhetoric only adds to the concern is that moderate voters may feel alienated by messaging that comes across as overly intense, self-righteous, or disconnected from everyday issues. For some observers, this is why figures around Kamala Harris and others in the party are under pressure to distance themselves from this style of communication.
Whoopi Goldberg, because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So she was, everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. It just happened to coincide. But can I just say this? I had on last week Ira Glasser, former longtime head of the ACLU, talking about free speech. Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend. We can disagree with each other. Should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement.
Still, Bill Maher draws a clear line that he refuses to cross free speech even while strongly criticizing Whoopi Goldberg's statement. He makes it clear that he is not calling for her to be cancelled or removed from the show. That distinction shapes his entire argument. In his view, free speech only has meaning when it protects unpopular, provocative, or even offensive opinions, not just the ones people agree with. At the same time, he points to what he sees as a double standard, suggesting that if the roles were reversed, a level of support for open expression might not be the same. This suspicion adds another layer to the clash, turning it from a simple disagreement over a comment into a broader debate about consistency and whether people truly believe in open discussion for everyone, regardless of viewpoint.
But isn't it interesting that I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's the view.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not actually, you're right, the name raises questions, and certainly there's been some much covered internal politics on that show, but I do think that, there is space. Even that show does have space. When Whoopi said what she said, there was quick pushback from other panelists. They were like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I think that might not be right.
And that brings us to the bigger issue critics keep pointing to about The View. The concern is not that the hosts hold strong opinions. That is expected. The real debate is how those opinions are handled when they are challenged. Critics argue that disagreement is often met with defensiveness instead of openness, confrontation instead of conversation, and loyalty to a narrative instead of genuine exchange. That is where some say the show starts to feel less like a discussion and more like a closed environment where only one perspective is fully welcomed. In Maher's view, that is a core problem. When outrage is rewarded, dissent is pushed aside, and narrative is prioritized over facts, credibility begins to erode in a way audiences can sense quickly. So ultimately, this was never just about one comment from Whoopi Goldberg. It becomes part of a larger critique of a style of commentary that some say leans on emotional framing over substance and deepens division while presenting itself as truth. Thanks for watching Truth Trigger Channel. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for more sharp takes and honest commentary. See you in the next one.